Do you feel ready? Yes? Right. Thank you. Right. As I've said, right, I'm quite surprised to see so many faces. And today, we all know, of course, the topic of today's conference. And I've got to say, it's the first time I'm here. So I feel privileged, I have to say. Right, so as you know, the topic is using reconstruction and modeling tasks to teach critical writing skills. And that's under supporting EAP teachers. And, oh, hello. Hello. Nice to see you. So my name is Katarzyna Truszkowska, but that's quite a long name. So I quite like when I'm called Kasia. It's just a shortcut, right, for my full name. So I guess I'm gonna just introduce myself so that you know where I'm coming from today in general. Apart from the fact that I'm Polish, right? And today I come from Oxford. So yeah, please come and join us. So my background is in English studies, as I guess you could imagine. And I've also got BSc in economics. Why is it there? Sometimes I just ask myself this question. But here it is. And as many of us, I think it's not a surprise that I'm CELTA and CELTA qualified. I think that's quite a common background for most of us. This BSc degree sounds at the beginning quite, oh, what is doing it here? But then when you look at what I did next, I did a lot of teaching on the university preparation courses, where I taught many years in Oxford, where I did EAP and IBM. I guess many of you know it's International Business Management. MM stands for Marketing Management, and Q, that's Research Methods, of course. And it's with that I've done a lot of IELTS preparation, and I've been heavily involved with UCAS recruitment and helping our students, of course, to progress to very good universities in the UK. And apart from that, I've been at the University of Surrey for quite a few years, which still brings a lot of good memories, I've got to say. And over the last 2 years, I've supported London Metropolitan Middlesex University, where I was doing, in fact, professional communication, a bit different from EAP, and Northumbria and Ulster University. So that's my main background, and I really like what Lynn said in the previous talk, that we have different EAP experiences depending on what you've done in the past, if it's only in sessional, if it's pre-sessional courses, or as she mentioned, archaeology, as most of my students come from business management background, in fact. But currently, in fact, I'm working on my own online school set in Oxford. I've also got my podcast, Academic Reading and Writing Made Easy, as I do think that our students need more support than what they are already given at universities. And I've also decided to have my own LinkedIn newsletter on LinkedIn, Academic English Made Easy, in which in fact I try to cover things which are related not only to teaching, reading or writing, but giving more support to our international students. As sometimes I do think that we sometimes forget how many things our international students need to in fact face or sometimes fight when they come to the UK. And it's not only English. So just a bit of this. So I quite like to tell my students that if it was only about language, you wouldn't struggle so much as you do, because I don't think that coming to the UK and studying in the UK is a matter of the language, because in their home countries, I'm sure they have top universities with degrees taught in English, but the main difference is in the system, which I think not too many of our students are aware of those differences. But in this workshop, I want to show you how you can use modeling and reconstruction tasks to better teach critical writing skills. And why did I choose this topic? Because I do think there is, I don't want to say a huge gap, but I do see a gap between what we in fact expect our students to deliver and what we teach them. So we want our students to write critically. We want to see them to be able to synthesize sources and then engage in a discussion. And when I sometimes receive the writing, I feel, oh, that looks slightly different from what I taught them. And my question is, why is it so? And I do have my, of course, assumptions why it is so, and that's based on different institutions I've worked with. And in my experience, the setting is very much academic, because it's got to be academic. We are at university, so of course we want our students to be able to follow academic conventions. But then the question is, how, in fact, effectively we teach them to do it. And then what I also liked about Lindsay Talk was that we do have different backgrounds. And in fact, now I think I've spent more time teaching EAP than general English, but I do think that we can learn a lot from general English teachers. And I've got to say that I do value all my qualifications and education, but I see a lot of value coming from the CELTA qualifications. And today in this workshop, in fact, you will see a couple of things and you might think, but it's good, but that's, in fact, it's not academic. It's got so little to do with what you do at universities. But in fact, that's a workshop, and that's what Lindsay said. And that's what gave me a bit more confidence now, because 2 days ago when I was sending those slides, I thought, no, I should completely redo them. Like, it's no way I can present that in such a professional context. But then today I thought, no, perhaps I should do it today. So that's a workshop, and I hope you've got your notebooks and pens. And let's start. Right, so the question is, have you been to LA?
No.
At least one person, yes, you've got somebody. Right, you too. I haven't been to LA, so what's your experience?
I was there for a couple of weeks a long time ago and visiting friends, so it's holidays.
All right, so you enjoyed your time in LA. And you?
Similar experience a long time ago visiting friends.
All right.
Just a vast volume of traffic that was
That's what I
overwhelming.
would imagine.
So I've been to LA as a child, and what I remember is, you can't really walk from place to place. It's a lot of roads, a lot of traffic.
I would imagine a
Yeah,
lot.
when you're up in the hills, because you got the layer of smog. over the
Yeah.
city.
Oh, I see. Right. I guess we can explain that. Another question, I guess, more people can relate to this one. Has anyone had a Tesla car? Yeah, that's what people would say, like, we're not talking the right people, but I'm like, I'm not sure, honestly. So we've got those two photographs, and now you might be thinking, what is she going to tell us? And I'm going to show you this picture, in fact. What's happening in the photograph? Can you see that? I guess difficult. It's really dark.
Car crash.
Yes, it is. Car crash. Any more details?
In Los Angeles?
Yes, definitely. I'm going to share the caption with you. So that's what happened. So now we understand why those two photographs, I believe. Right, so now let's move on to the practical part of it. So, as for now, I would like you to write 10 simple sentences retelling the story. simple sentences, just one subject, one verb, and a full stop. 10. It's got to be 10. Mm-hmm. 10 is simple. Sorry?
So it's 8 plus those 2.
No, they can be your own sentences, right? They don't have to be like finish those. I just can perhaps show you the story if you remember the story what happened.
So are we going to watch the video, or are we just
No. There's not a video. It's just a photograph, a caption, and based on this caption, I would like you to write 10 simple, very simple sentences telling the story. Mm-hmm. Correct.
Show it again, or are we not supposed to look at it?
Not too much, but I
Okay.
guess,
Sorry.
of course, you'll be just short,
fine.
simple sentences.
That's okay.
Remember, they need to be simple sentences.
That's the hardest part, actually.
That's why I thought it would be difficult. So, no ands, no buts. If you just make sure you don't have those conjunctions. Right? And I think 10 should be enough, 10 sentences, I mean. Seven.
Hard
Three
to write
more.
10.
And you, sorry?
It's hard to write 10, I've got like 5.
Five.
Yeah, I'm stuck on 7.
And perhaps take a look at the original story if you want to add some details or not necessarily. At least 5? At least 5 sentences? Good? Happy with them?
No.
Not really. Right, because we want to move over, because there is a bit of discussion later as well, and I would like to hear your thoughts on it. So we've got those 10 sentences, more or less, simple, must be simple sentences. And now, I want you to work with the partners. So it's got to be a bit of, as the workshop says, a bit of group work. So if you can turn around to your partners. And now, yes? Good? Perfect. So perhaps just if I can hear a couple of suggestions, if you could share 1 or 2 sentences. If from this side, if you could just give us 1 simple sentence you've got. So everybody just a bit of, I think I've lost them. Okay. But yes, if you could just tell me 1 or 2 sentences you've got. All right. Good. Nice. Okay. Good. Simple sentences. Everybody, right? So we've got those simple sentences. Wasn't that easy, I believe? But now, again, based on what you've got, on those simple sentences, now you've got to reconstruct the original text. I believe you don't have screenshots of the caption. And so, right, now what you've got together with your partners in your little groups, now your job is to put those simple sentences back into two complex sentences. That's the next step.
So 5 sentences in one?
We were supposed to have 10.
Just 2 sentences.
So if you've got 5, I guess it's one complex. Because the original caption had 2 sentences, right? The original caption. Yeah. So now you want to reconstruct the caption based on what we've got. Ideally, if you could work as a group.
I think the thing is we have to get so we need to combine exactly the same.
Yeah, we discussed it. Joe.
Driving through
I suppose the other thing is
Right. So dear ladies, you finished. Is the theoretical Have we got something? Yes, finished? Oh, Okay, good.
Maybe one more.
1 more minute. That's fine. And you go One more
Yeah, we went
Everybody, I think you have finished, almost finished. So can you please share your answers? Just reading out 2 sentences. Each group, if you could. Yes? Each group.
We have different sentences actually.
You've got to.
Separately.
Story. All right.
Separately and then we compared.
All right. That's fine. I think. Yes. So if you.
Okay, I think I remember almost everything. The driver was caught on camera pulling off a dangerous stunt on a Tesla and having a bad accident. The viral video shows the Tesla going airborne and crashing into 2 parked cars and several trash cans in an eco park.
Thank you. Sounds very good, right? Almost as the original. Right.
So mine is looked around there. As the lights flashed and the chorus struck, the silence fell, intensifying the crash landing at the car park.
Interesting. Good. Thank you. Yes. Others.
We've only got a couple of, we haven't got the whole story, but the video shows a driver in a Tesla attempting something dangerous, which goes wrong. He went through a junction, crashing into 2 cars and knocking over some trash cans.
Right. Thank you. And thank you very much. If you could share yours.
Okay, one night in LA, an idiot driver attempted to pull off a high-speed car stunt dash. However, he failed. Full stop. Instead, he drove his car in the air, smashed. I can't remember my handwriting. Smashed 2 other cars in trash cans. Semicolon. This dramatic event was caught on video and became viral.
Now I see the same color. Right. Good. Thank you. Yes. No. That's fine. On this side.
A budding LA stuntman lost control of his Tesla car when attempting a stunt at an intersection and crashed it into 2 parked cars and several trash cans. We just got 1 sentence so far.
Fair enough. Thank you. Good. And ladies.
A dramatic video shows an accident involving a Tesla in the Echo Park neighbourhood of LA. The driver was attempting a stunt at high speed, which resulted in him going through an intersection which caused him to go airborne and crash into 2 vehicles on some track.
Thank you very much. And our gentleman over there, you've got 2 sentences.
Okay. A man driving a Tesla in Echo Park does a dangerous stunt when he reaches a crossroads. Driving fast without stopping, he loses control and hits 2 parked cars, ending up in the trash.
Thank you very much. Right, good. So everybody, now my question is, why did we do this activity in fact? Any ideas? So what I want to show you is that, okay, academic context is formal, it is, but coming to this conference, I knew that I would be talking to probably most of you are native speakers of English, right? So of course your level of English, it's native, and you've been doing this job for many years. So I didn't want to choose any type of text. I wanted to show you something which could be at least a bit challenging for native speakers of English. So that it's not just any other type of activity you do from a textbook. And correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression is that you did enjoy this activity at least a bit, right? It was a bit like, 10 simple sentences, and then reconstructing those sentences. So my aim was to show you that it can be a challenging task, even if you are a native speaker of English. And that's one point of doing the reconstruction tasks, showing the challenge to our students. And now, why reconstruction tasks? Okay, so we are from different backgrounds, and in some places where I used to teach, and I'm still teaching, we tend to follow this lecture type classes. So we show students what is expected from them, we show them how they should write critically, we show them some examples of critical, let's say, paragraphs, and then we receive their work. And on many occasions, I'm quite disappointed. So then my question is, why am I so disappointed? I showed them the slides, right? I told them the process, the steps. So the way I see it is that they don't have this opportunity to do what we did today. Yes, that's in a second, this slide. But the thing is that, I'm sorry for skipping that because I want to go to the main point. This one, that, or perhaps this one. Sorry for skipping those slides. I just want to choose the most interesting, the most important ones. So it's about noticing the gap, in fact, and if you follow the slides, between the current state of their developing linguistic system as realized in their output and the target language system available as input. So I think many times we show them that's the end product, and now you've got the steps, bring me your writing. But why not perhaps apply it from what we call it, as you know it, test, teach, test. Let's see how well they can do this task. Let's compare their output with the input. Many times we do it the other way around. Many times we show them that's the model, follow the model, bring me your writing. And that's when they fail to achieve this level of criticality. So that's why I want to show you how reconstruction tasks can work. So it's about noticing the gap. But now that's the other question. We are in this academic context, so of course we are not showing them newspapers. Of course, it's not the point. That's why I've got this text. I've got to now go back to my slides. So that's just a paragraph taken from Stella Cottrell. If you just take a look at this one. Of course, it's not 2 sentences, it's a paragraph, it's got more sentences, it's got some specific terminology, and it would be difficult to ask our students now reconstruct the whole paragraph. But I do believe that even when we show a bit of visual aids, the system, the way they already process what they are supposed to face, this opening of schema or schemata, right, whatever we call it. So those pictures do bring some associations, they start a discussion. And then when we show them this paragraph, so that's what we want to analyze today, that's what we want you to be able to write. So perhaps we can look at signposting language, because again, I know I'm talking to native speakers of language, and you might not be in fact, I mean, you are of course aware of that, but sometimes we tend to forget that in other languages, for example, in my native language, we don't use signposting language, in fact. We don't. It's not the nature of the Polish language. But in the English language, of course, we do have them. We have them in speaking, we have them in writing. That's how our texts become coherent and cohesive. And simple things like that, they seem obvious to you because you've been I don't want to say you were born with them, but you've been in this culture, in this language for so long that you might not become aware how much you use them. But those who are not native speakers of English, they've got to be reminded. You've got to use signposting language, otherwise people find it really difficult to follow you and what you're trying to say. So what I'm trying to say is that you don't necessarily have to tell them, reconstruct the whole paragraph, reconstruct 200 words. You might want to say, okay, let's look at some most difficult parts in critical writing, perhaps, depending on the level of student, can be signposting language, references. Sometimes I'm still quite impressed how often you can teach references, and then when you get the writing back, sometimes, I just say, it's simply unacceptable. That's the only comment I leave. Sometimes, not often. So what I'm trying to say is that with the reconstruction tasks, of course, you can give yourself flexibility. You see your students, where they struggle, and then based on the text you want to teach them, you can simply pick out a couple of things. Is it, yes, how they link ideas, formality of language. I often see our students not being able to write in the formal language and just saying that they are overusing personal pronouns. I don't think that answers the problem. I think the problem is much deeper than just saying to them, oh, we are using shortcuts, or we are using I, you instead of being more formal. I think they lack more than just vocabulary in their writing. So there's, I think, a lot of things you can do with reconstruction tasks. And the reason why I showed you the Tesla model is that I thought it would be quite at least interesting for today. And a bit of background theory, right? So modeling, that's the topic, of course. Providing learners with a written or oral model, but of course we'll focus on the written model, that the teacher would like the learner to produce. In this context, we want them to be able to produce critical writing, because that's what being at university is about, of course. So that's the end product for us. But how we can do it, right? By noticing, and noticing language so that they know what they need to focus on. I'm skipping through the slides because I've got this one, right? And I quite like this one, of course. I'm quite interested in fact, bottom-up and top-down processes in terms of reading, how we teach international students how to understand the reading text. And this one, that's a perfect way to activate bottom-up processes. And if you look at this one, it brings their attention to what they need to discover, what they already know about the English language and what they do not know about it yet, what they cannot use. But I like this one, in fact. You can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it a drink. So the point is that I've seen that myself, honestly. Whenever I'm not too explicit about my goals, about the aims for my session, it looks pretty much like this. We're doing something, but no one knows what, in fact. So the question is, what if, right? What if I'm trying so hard to help my students notice the gap between what they know and what they don't know about, for example, critical writing? What should I do? So that's a question to you, before I reveal the answers. Right? Mm-hmm.
Because I have become aware of this firsthand as an international student a long time ago. But I think the issue here is not just language, by far not language, right? It's the whole the British academic structure that is expected of you, and also the British academic writing culture, which I think is really important to make the students aware. And at least that's what I'm trying to do usually with my students, notice the differences between what is acceptable back home in their first language, which could be, again, a completely different story, and how it's different here. And that's why noticing, like what you said, and giving the models is quite helpful, because it's very concrete. We can talk about it, but it's really vague and abstract, and they have still no clue.
Yes, on this point, I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, of course it's open to discussion. I often hear our students saying, is there a template? They all want to have a template. And it's a bit tricky thing, right? Because in fact, there's no template. What I say is that you've got one task, there's, let's say, 30, 50 people answering exactly the same question, but it doesn't mean that your answer will be better than your colleague's answer, your friend's answer, because that's what this process is about, and that's why we don't want to give them templates, but modeling and reconstruction the way we think, I guess, as well.
I'm so sorry. It's a very personal issue for me. I completely agree with you. Sorry to interrupt you. I feel that because what we are doing, like you said, the British students, if we take the same age student here in the UK, they have been taught this type of writing, the style of writing, the models, structures and language and everything throughout primary, secondary school and up to the university. So what we are doing with international students, we are kind of cutting already at a much later stage. So trying to give them there and then in a very short space of time. And that's why model is sort of a quick approach.
Honestly, with this one again, correct me if I'm wrong, yes and no, I think. I remember teaching really advanced students, and if they're advanced, they pick up those things very easily and quickly, I would say. I haven't taught that many British students, home students, just a couple. Difficult for me to make this comparison. Have you got a question?
No, I was just after you said that.
Yes, so what I was trying to say is that I like this article, not sure if you've read that. I have to check the title, different but same. It's about in general how educational system is divided across the world. That we've got in fact two approaches to education. One is based on a process, the other one is based on procedures. And in fact, US, UK, Canada, those countries, they're based on process. And myself coming from Poland, and European countries, of course, Eastern countries, they are based on procedures. When we come to the classroom, we are not expected to be creative, we're not expected to be asking questions, we just expect to follow our teachers. And in process-based education systems, they of course are more likely to engage in the process of thinking and discovering ideas and so on. But again, for me to be able to say that home students perform better than international, I don't have like this data to be, yes.
It's not about the performance, but don't you think we understand
Yes.
better if people speak our language, like what we expect them to say? Okay, I see their argument, it's clear. But if they try to say the same thing but in a very different structure, then it's really hard to understand.
Yes.
Can I just say something?
Uh-huh.
I teach in session to so-called international students and so-called home students, and I think they both struggle with writing in different ways. So I've got a home student at the moment, and she's part of the reason I came to this session is because she's got writer's block, and she has her undergraduate degree was about 10 years ago, and she can write bullet points, but she can't write the sentences. So I think everybody has their own individual challenges. Can't just like pigeonhole people like that. Yes.
And one more question, because we've got 1 minute left.
Yeah, no, just a point. In terms of, well, I teach, I run a foundation course, pre-masters, and teach academic writing in sessional. And in the course, and they're all international students at SOAS, I said to them this week, I don't think it matters if the room is full of British or students, because I think, actually I've got 2 daughters at Manchester University, when it comes to home students, UK students, they can do it, right? They can do all the signposting. Have they been taught it? That's a different question. Well, it's variable. It's really variable to the extent to which they've actually, in some ways you pick it up, but you often, and I know this with my daughters doing things at university, all of a sudden they don't know why they're doing it or what they're doing, and there's questions. So some of it is imitation, I think the extent to which they've been taught the skills varies enormously.
They are now primary school, they're taught adverbials and stuff, they're taught sentence structure, essay structure, they're taught it very explicitly now, but they weren't, for example, when I was younger, grammar wasn't taught explicitly, structure wasn't taught explicitly, you just picked it up, and if you studied languages then you...
But academic conventions, when it comes to academic convention in the university, exactly, they're not actually being told how to taught how to write an essay
No,
in terms of the university?
not with young adults now, possibly with my children now, they will be taught it.
That's fine. I
it's-
think we
everything's
have
very
to
explicit.
finish very soon. Sorry for that. I just wanted to say one final note is that sometimes when I do this workshop, I mean, it's the second time when I'm doing this, honestly, and I see teachers like, oh, I'll try, next time I'll try to do it in the classroom. And sometimes people think, oh, I have to prepare a PowerPoint, find those pictures or something. Honestly, I think this task takes so little time, honestly. It's just a matter of just choosing a paragraphs from some article, finding some visuals on the internet. It takes much less time than in fact preparing this PowerPoint for a lecture. So I do hope that if you want to try this one, it doesn't have to be so painful.
Sorry, can I just say something? I
Yes.
found it very, very interesting, your approach. I did find slight similarities to the grammar dictation method.
Yes, because it's based
by listening
on,
input,
yes, yes.
right, and picking out keywords and then getting the students to reconstruct. the
Yes,
text.
because that's the
And they build the
yes,
grammar into
it is. It is based on this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.